Good morning, everybody. It's Marsha Casper Cook, and my co-host today is Delta James. Hi, Delta.
Hey, Marsha, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. This is a special show that we're doing, and we're going to see how it works. And maybe people will get used to the fact they can call in, or we might do a night show so people can call in if they're at work. Most of the people that listen, it's, a lot of times it's on demand. So we'll be seeing how that goes. But today's show is going to be different because we're going to talk about the things that people ask us. So I'm going to let Delta introduce herself. And before we go, I am an author, screenwriter, podcast host. And Delta, tell everybody who you are.
I'm a USA best-selling author, USA Today best-selling author, who started in July of 2018, and I was able to leave my day job in April of 2019. I write romantic suspense, both contemporary and paranormal.
And you have a lot of books.
I have a lot of books. I write full-time. When I say full-time, my full-time is different than other writers who say, I write full-time. Well, they write full-time, but they have a family, or they have a husband, or, they have to do all their shopping and all their cooking and all their this and all their that. I don't do any of that. I just write 10 to 12 hours a day.
Which brings me to a question that people ask all the time is, where can I write? When do I have time? I'm busy with the kids, I'm busy making dinner, I'm busy doing all sorts of things. And my answer is, you can find a half hour. Like, I remember when my son was little, I'd be waiting at a game, I'd be sitting in a car, and then that's what I would do. I would write. You don't have to sit down and write for 5 hours straight. You can just write, but if you write a little every day, by the time a month goes around, you've got pretty much written already. So, I think that that's what people don't, they want to know, because they all want to write books, but they don't have time. But you can make time during lunch.
I think that it's important to ask yourself if you really want to write. I also think the first question I always ask anybody who comes and talks to me is, do you want to do this because it's a hobby and a passion?
Yeah.
Or do you want to make a living doing it? And a lot of times the answer, they kind of look at me with a blank stare and they go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And the reason it's important for you to answer that question is because the answer to that question drives every other decision you will ever make. Every single one. Nothing else is more important than just figuring out why you want to do that. Now, that reason can change over the years. You can start as one and move to the other. Doesn't matter. The other thing I tell people is, for me personally, I don't care what your answer is.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat you the same way. It doesn't matter at all. But you need to know, for you, why are you doing this?
And Delta, I will add one thing, though. A lot of authors don't make a lot of money,
No, they don't. But a lot of authors throw away a lot of money, too.
Yes, that's another thing. We'll get to that part of the question later. But that's the truth. You made the decision for your second career, which a lot of authors have done that, but a lot of people can't. So you're writing a lot, but when you started, did you start writing, hours a day or half an hour?
I absolutely. When I decided I was going to do this and really was going to do it, I was working a job where I worked 50 to 60 hours a week, Monday through Friday. I would come home, I would fix a quick dinner, and I will even tell you what that was. I used that Uncle Ben's minute rice that you put in the microwave.
Yeah.
And this place, there was a grocery store that took their rotisserie chicken the next morning that didn't sell, and they shredded it off the bone. So you could buy shredded roast. And I would buy those a couple of times a week. And my dinner was that bag of minute rice with some shredded chicken and some kind of sauce, barbecue sauce, ranch, whatever.
Yeah.
But because I could literally have that made by the time I fed my dogs.
Right.
That's how I did. And so I wrote 2 to 3 hours a night minimum. Yeah. I said to myself, I'm going to write 2 hours a night, Monday through Friday, at least. Now, if the writing was going well, I wrote more than that. But I wrote 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I wrote 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. Now, I lost a lot of friends doing that because people wanted to go do something, and I don't blame them. I was too busy.
Right.
I was focused on what I was going to do. And so to those of my friends that passed by the wayside when all this started, I'd say I apologize, but I'm really not sorry I did it because it worked out really well for me. But I'm sorry if you got hurt in the process.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you have to find that time, and you might have to get up a little bit earlier. You might have to hire a babysitter but you need uninterrupted time, and you need to commit to that amount, in my opinion, commit to that amount of time every single day. And you're right, it doesn't have to be 2 hours or 6 hours. It can
Right.
be 15 minutes. It can
Right.
be a half an hour. It
Right.
can be whatever. If you have a day job, get a laptop or something you can write on
Right.
and take it with you. And on your lunch hour, go sit in your car with your bagged lunch and write.
Right.
So,
I had done that. Right. I had done that. And that's true. And you'll be surprised how much you can get done in a half hour of complete quiet or whatever. I used to go to coffee shops and write there, and I wrote full books there,
mhm.
but I kept going over and over, I went all the time lunchtime and I wrote everything there. So I myself get sidetracked at home. So I had an office
Mhm.
for years, and so then I went back to the office. I might still go back because I think when I just don't have anything else, I can get unfocused, which is bad. So
Which is also really common.
yeah, it's very common. That's one of the things. And I tell people this, and you can't really be disappointed in yourself. Just try to keep going. That's one of the things that I've mentioned over and over again. I try for people to start to write because they want to write, but don't expect that it's going to be a miracle. This is hard, okay? And
Mhm.
it's really hard. So that's why I think this kind of a show is trying to explain to people, we're not talking about what books I mean, we have written lots of books, but we're trying to tell people out there that even if they're seasoned, because this happens to a lot of people. I mean, I was at a signing one time and some, young man came up and he said, you know, I'm stuck now in a page. So I told him, I said, just keep going. You'll go back later. But then I found myself sometimes not taking my own advice. See, that's the thing. I could give advice, but I don't know if I can take my own. So, I mean, but my goal is for people to continue to write if you want to write. Don't do it because you think you're going to make $1 million. Write because you want to tell a story. And you and I have talked about this. And this is what this is. You're actually storytelling. Now, you and I
Mhm.
write, we don't write the same kind of fiction,
No, not at
but
all.
but we have the principles that it takes to write, and we know what it takes. So you can talk to somebody that writes nonfiction, somebody that writes murder mysteries. We're all basically have this one thing in common. We like to write and tell a story.
Exactly. And I don't think it should matter whether you're telling steamy romance, which is what I do, or clean
Right,
romance, which is what you do. To me, that doesn't matter. The advice is the same. It's all the
yeah,
same thing. Your
yeah,
storytelling. You have to hone your craft. You can't
right,
ever quit honing your craft. You have
right,
to look at everything you do with a critical eye. There's so much things, but it's all common across the board. And I think to a certain extent, even to some nonfiction. But I don't know enough about nonfiction to speak to that because I've never written
right,
it. Well, I wrote some magazine articles, but that's neither here nor there.
right,
But it's really a question of making the commitment, and it's okay to think I want to write a book and then go, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. I have a good
right,
friend. She has a journalism degree. She wrote for Stars and Stripes. She worked at the Pentagon, on and on and on. And I was making money as a fiction writer, and she said, well, I'm trained. I know how to write. I can do this. Three
yeah,
days
yeah,
in, she called me up. And she said, "How the
right,
hell do you do this?
yeah.
How the hell do you do this day after
Because it's
day after
not the
day?"
same. It's not.
He
That
said,
isn't the same.
it's awful. I can't do this."
Yeah,
And the other thing I find, especially beginners, get caught up in is number of words. How many words should I write
oh,
each
yeah,
day?
yeah,
Don't talk to me about words. I don't want to talk about
right,
words.
right,
Commit to a specific time. Let's say you pick a half an hour. Sometimes you'll never get to 500 words in that half
right,
an hour. Someday you'll get 1800. It
right,
depends how the writing is going. So don't focus on the words because then you'll have this up and down emotional thing.
right,
Focus on how much time. Yes, I spent my half an hour today. Now, some people like charts and they like to give themselves stickers and stars. And if that works for you, by
Right.
God, do it.
Right.
I'm a firm believer, and
Right.
unless it hurts somebody else, you do you, boo-boo, as one of my
Yeah.
friends says.
Yeah.
If that's what makes you happy, if that's what keeps you going, do it. I don't care
Right.
how silly it sounds to somebody else, do it. They're not
Right.
the one writing your book. You are. You get to make
Right.
all the decisions. And that's true whether you're published by a traditional publisher or whether you're not. You get to make
Right.
the decision. Sometimes the decision is, I'm not going to do this. I'm withdrawing my book from a traditional publisher. Sometimes
Yeah.
as an indie, you say, yeah, I don't like these people. I don't like this book. I don't like the way it's
Right.
going. I don't want to write this. And you put it aside and do something else.
Right. Yeah, and
But
that's true. Yeah, and
you know,
that is true because, sometimes you start something and you just know it's not right. So sometimes when that happens to me, I start rewriting it again and see if maybe I started it wrong. Because sometimes if you get a good start, it's very hard to know that is one of the questions is where do I start? Sometimes you start writing and then 50 pages in, 100 pages in, whatever, you go like, you know what? I don't like the beginning. Then you can figure out the beginning because you already know where you've gone. But just write it, and that's the thing. Sometimes you're not going to get the exact moment that first page is
and
going to
it's never
be
going to
the
be
one you keep.
perfect.
Right.
And it's never going to be perfect. Don't expect it to be because you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
And
For
here's a
me, I think there are three kinds of
Done.
writers. There are ones who are plotters. There are
Yeah.
ones who are pantsers, which is
Yeah.
totally writing by the seat of your pants with absolutely, I have
Right.
no idea where you're going. And trust me, you can be successful doing that. I did it for years.
Right.
And there are some of us that move from one or the other to outlining, which is where you kind of give yourself a break. You kind of know where you're going. You sort of have a plan, but it's not intricate and plotted out. See, for me, my characters sort of tend to turn left and go a different way, and I have to follow them.
Yes.
So plotting for me is not easy, but I do outlining.
And I want you to tell them what was the name of you said you used a service to help you with like that. There's something.
There's a couple of places on Facebook that have different. There was Plot Bunnies, and the other was the Plot Coven, and they have pre-made concepts and outlines and stuff for you. Yeah. And they're not horribly expensive. And if you're really stuck for an idea, it's a good place to start. And you just start working with those and finding what works for you. And not everybody writes the same way.
Right. Exactly.
I can literally write in a crowded airport with everything going on around me, and somebody'd have to come get me for the plane. I can get so focused on what I'm doing. I've always been able to do that. I just shut out all the noise.
Right.
Focus on what I'm doing.
That's because and you know where you're going. Like a lot of times people, they just can't, they get unfocused, and so I can write with people talking if I'm really wanting to write, and then I'm just very focused. Like you said, I could write in a coffee shop where people are,
exactly.
Right. And that's why I was listening to something and they were talking about writers who get stories and how they talk about different words. Because sometimes if you're in a coffee shop, just sitting there, by listening to other people talk, you're not supposed to, but I do. Anyway,
everybody does.
Sometimes I want to get in the conversation and sometimes I do, and because sometimes it's very interesting and they don't care if you come in, but that's how you learn about different people. You don't actually learn as much from your friends as you do from other people. That something they said, just a word. But what I do is if I hear something like one line or something comes to my head, I make notes on my phone now so I won't forget what because once I make a note, I can get a whole page out of it once I know that what the thought was.
Absolutely. There's an old saying that for writers everything is grist for the mill, which means everything goes into your process. People you've met, people you've heard, accents you've heard, places you've been, all of those contribute to your experience. And the great thing about the internet for me, I think, is the research that it allows people to do. I have a friend who is a Florida-based writer. She has never lived anywhere but Florida. She has traveled very little outside the state of Florida. Now, she can tell you everything you want to know about Florida. But that's kind of where... And it's like, she says, but I have to write in Florida about Florida because it's all I know. I said, you don't know how to use the
Right.
internet? You don't know how to get on YouTube and look stuff up? You don't watch television
Yep.
shows? You don't read other
Yep.
books? You don't do. There
Yep.
are lots of ways to learn about this world. I think I'm not going to say better, but I think it's easier if you've experienced it yourself.
I think some writers
Well,
that have traveled all over the place, they really have like 10 points up. I mean, they do. Because, they
I
know
think
it
it's
they
easier
know,
for them.
like, although I will say, like, Hallmark, let's just take that, writing.
Mhm.
So Hallmark seems to have a good grasp of the fact that people don't always travel. So now some of their some of the movies are on like Paris, they're in Italy, they're all different places, and they actually show you places. So you're almost like looking down the streets. That helps because, and they may not be there as long as you think they are filming, because a lot of times they have shots and then they go to a coffee shop or something, not in
Yeah, and sometimes
Paris.
the actors are never in that
Right. Yeah.
place.
Yes.
The actors are never there.
Yeah.
It's the camera crew
Yes.
goes.
And right, exactly. And that's a lot of things. A lot of times they do that, but as when you watch it, you kind of get a feel for it also. And now you're right about the internet, though. You can say Paris and they'll give you everything you know about Paris. They'll show, down the streets, what you could buy there, what you could eat. So it's really pretty good now for people that, I used to go to the library years ago and I liked that. But now I find myself, if you want to know something, you can go on the computer and you do find it. Anything.
It's
There's
absolutely.
not much you
I
can't
think it's
find.
really opened up things for writers,
Oh my
and
God, yes.
I think it's made it. Like I said, I don't know that it's made it better, but it's made it easier.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
That's
easier to
right for
access,
you.
and
Yeah.
and
Okay. And here's okay, go ahead. I just
I
want to
think
ask,
the thing you
I'll
need to
remember something.
know as a writer about readers is they can spot, excuse my language, bullshit a mile off.
Yeah.
They can tell if you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And if somebody says to you that's not what they would do in the Marines or that's not what they would, and
Right.
you go, oh, that's not important. Nobody will know that.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yes, they
Oh
will.
no. Not true.
You know, and so I'm really careful about that. Like
Yeah.
I have a couple of series that are set up in Alaska, and people are like, oh, you must have spent tons of time in Alaska. I've been to Alaska a couple of times, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But the reason my stuff feels so real is one, I do a lot of research, but two, I have readers that do live in Alaska.
Yeah.
And I can say to them, will you read this? Could this
Yeah.
happen? Is this what the terrain looks like? Is
Yeah.
this what is does would this happen? Is this, and they are love them, I love them to death. They're willing to say yes or no or somewhere in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are people who will help you. Another writer, reach out and say, hey, I've never been to Florida. What's it like there? And I can give you my
Right.
impressions. I think it's there's so many ways we can reach out and get the information. So for me, not to get the information, if the information is wrong and I know it was
Yeah.
easily obtainable, I'm done with that writer. It's like if
Yeah.
you don't care enough to do a tiny bit of research and make sure you got it right, I don't have time to read your book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of a bitch that way. But then you're talking to the woman who can go down the rabbit hole of research on, something about whatever
Well,
and spend
yeah.
2 or 3 hours there. So
Well, I like to know things too. I am very curious. I think I was probably always that way,
Me too.
because I always like conversations with different people, and I like to know an answer. So I will go through and look at a lot of pages on the internet, not just one. I'll like
Yeah.
really, really get into it. If I'm looking for like superstitions that I don't have, I have a lot of them. So my characters seem to have them, and I will research it because I just want to know, and it helps me and for another book that I already know, oh yeah, that person has that superstition, but you do have to read it, and it takes time, but it's very interesting, I
To me
think.
too. I am perpetually curious. I always was.
Yes. Yeah.
Even as a child, I was perpetually curious. I read
Me
everything.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
I was an avid reader as a kid. I write more now than I read these days, but that's okay. I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you have to do a lot of research and you have to look at your craft. I mean, it's real easy for people who are just starting out to say, oh, the big name authors are trying to stop me. First off, the big name authors probably don't know who you are and probably could care less.
Right.
But I don't think anybody's trying to stop you from doing anything. If you're getting bad reviews, there are those that say don't read the reviews. I say just the opposite, because a lot of times, especially the bad reviews, you can learn things you're doing wrong. I remember reading a review one time, and I didn't like it. It wasn't a very good review, but I looked at it and I thought, she's got a point. Oh, man, yeah, she's right. I could do that better. So I quit doing that. And so you can learn from those kind of things.
Yeah.
And you just have to be able to take in feedback, criticism, whatever you want to call it, and learn from that. And never think that, oh, I'm going to get to X place and I'll know it all. No, you won't, because for one thing, the market will have changed. So no, you won't. Get that out of your head, that there's not, and get out of your head that it comes easy to someday this will just be so easy. I can just sit down and write.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, maybe you can. I haven't gotten there yet.
Right. Because there are some things, and I think and a lot of the questions that people ask me, that's why we wanted to talk. That's what you and I discussed, what we should talk about this, because there are so many questions, and I think that I would try, and I have tried this before, that, with my blog talk show, if you want to come in and answer, I'll answer any questions, but I think that people sometimes get shy that way and they don't want to, and I get that. So Delta
or they think you're too busy to answer them.
Yes, and Delta and I do this a lot. So if there are questions, ask Delta or ask me, and then we will talk about it on a show, because we want to know what people, the reason we know what people ask is because they ask us. So it's not like, we don't know what they ask. And there's a lot of questions that people ask, when like we just talked about, when do you find time? And, they ask, like, how do you start? And see, that's the thing. There is no, I have, for the last month, after my December last show, before the new year, I decided to look through the internet and look on Facebook and look on Twitter and look everywhere and follow all the ads and see where they go and what they tell people and how they're going to have a success with this and that. So at the end of the day, there's very little out there that can actually help you except yourself. You have to write. You have to have the more books you write, the better off it is, because I think that is, if they, people, once you have a book, 1 isn't enough, 2 isn't enough. You have to keep going. And I myself have learned over this month that there's very little that these people can offer you. So you need to start writing and then worry about what you're going to do with marketing. Because I know you get this too I happen to have too many emails, too many Facebook pages, but saying that, I find out about everything. And I myself have realized this is not good for people. This does not help you. Being on a show can really help you. And I'm not saying that because I'm on a show. I did shows for 17 years, but it gives you something to put on your website so people can hear you. People want to hear you. And how do you feel about that? I know we've talked about this. They want to know you.
I think it's important to listen to people and to get your message heard. I was at a signing this weekend that was a dismal failure. I can't believe how bad it was.
Was it really? Wow.
Oh, it was horrible. But I'm not going to go there. Okay. But I was on a panel, and one of the other authors said, if you were just starting out, if you were going to start over, what's the one thing you wish you knew? And there were 4 of us, and I found it really interesting what people said. But one of the things one of them said was, find your tribe.
Yeah.
Find your tribe of people you can trust, people who you can bounce ideas off of, people you can say, this scene isn't working. Can you look at it and tell me where I went wrong? But find your tribe. Find your tribe that will cheer you on when you go, that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I hate this. I'm going to go back and, work at whatever.
Right.
Find that tribe. Find that tribe. And one of the things I said was, the first thing you need to know is how much you don't know. Because Liz always says that. She's always astounded by people who are just starting out, who have no idea how much they don't know.
Right.
And some of it's just because they've never done it before. Some of it is because it never occurred to them.
We're
They
not
didn't do
born
the
knowing
research.
this. We weren't born knowing how to do this.
No, and we all make mistakes, and we
Oh yeah.
all, somebody asked me, they asked the group, what's your greatest strength, and they listened to everybody, and they got to me, and I said, my ability to pivot.
Yeah.
And they said, what do you mean? And I said, I
Right.
can, when the
Yeah.
market shifts, I can pivot to follow the market.
Yeah.
When I'm doing a series and my PA Renee looks at it and says, I know you really like this series, but it's selling about a third of what the others do.
Yeah.
I dropped it. I
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah.
I have the ability to look, because I got into this to make money. I got into this to make a business, to be able to make a living at it. So I've always been focused on return on investment, on if it's making money. And that doesn't mean I don't care about my books or my characters or my readers or anything else. It just means that for me, this is how I make my living. This is how I'm going to pay my mortgage. How I'm going to buy, dog food.
Yeah.
It's looking at that and being able to look at it. When people, I'm not going to write to market. Well, that's great, except for you're not going to make any money either. So, just saying.
But although sometimes if they if they write to a certain market, they might not be good at it, and maybe they'll be good at another market. They should
Yeah,
think
you have
about
to
that
look at that. You
also.
have to look at
Yeah.
what you're good at and what interests you. And the thing about the
Right.
market is, if you have a passion for doing apocalyptic stuff,
Yeah.
you can still follow the market.
Yeah.
It's just that's more of a setting. But you have to follow the genre. And one of the things I say to people, which they hate me for, is find your lane and stay there.
Yeah.
At least until you're established. If you're jumping all over and you have to figure out what it is you think you're good at and go in
Right.
with everything.
And you know what though? And sometimes like because when I started, I I actually did screenplays, uh, and when I did the screenplays, I could have some of them could have sold. That just wasn't the right time or the right place,
Mhm.
and then I got an award on one of them, and then I've got option. But then I thought, which I've mentioned to people, it's a story. So then I started making it into books. And then I realized I have a lot of different kinds. I have many genres, which is very hard. And I would never give people advice to do this, but it just kind of happened for me because I did 5 children's books, then I did a memoir, then I did sexy books, then I did clean romance now.
Mhm.
And I realized through reviews that maybe I should stick to clean romance because that's where they seem to like what I've done and write about
Mhm.
family. I don't get the book reviews that I don't really try that. It's hard to get book reviews because it drives me crazy. I don't want people just reading a book just because I asked them to. And so I'm glad if I get reviews from people I don't know. But I would tell people try to stick to some sort of genre. My
Yeah,
career has gone many different ways because I've done so many different things, but it is really hard to market yourself if you are in all genres.
and
But
it's
that came from my screenplays. My screenplays were unique in each way, And I
Mhm.
have murder mysteries. You know, I have thriller, but I haven't done those yet, which I might. But I didn't start that way. But if you're actually wanting to start, which is people sometimes don't know, try to write something that interests you and that
Mhm.
you can keep doing other books. Don't write something because your neighbor does it or your friend. Write it because you have that story in you to tell.
Yeah, it's I think it's important to sort of find your lane
Yeah.
and then stay there while you build an audience. You can
Yeah.
branch out later. I'm not saying you have to stay in the same lane forever.
Right. Right. Right.
But you can start to build an audience there, and if you do it right, you can take that group with you
Yeah.
and then start gathering more.
Right.
um, I write contemporary, I write paranormal, and I've done 2 series that were post-apocalyptic. um, but there's always a romantic suspense element to it. There's always, so my readers will kind of go with me because they just like what I write. And mostly what I hear when I ask for feedback, and I'm getting feedback from people, is they like the characters.
Yeah.
They really like the characters. And I know that I write very character driven pieces,
Yeah.
books. My
Yeah.
books are driven by their characters. Some people write plot driven, and that doesn't make them wrong
Right.
or
Right.
bad or lesser or
Yeah.
anything else. It's just what they write, it's what they, and most likely it's what they read and it's what they watch on television.
Right.
For me, if I don't like the tech characters, I'm
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't have time for this. I need to like the characters. I need to be able to root for
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I can't, or if I don't care about them, I'm like, no, I don't care.
You know, I always call my
And
characters
that's it.
like my people. I hate this, but I do. They're like my people. They are people that I have made up, but they mean something to me. And so I
Oh
got to
yeah,
get it
and same
right.
thing.
I got to get it right. And if I don't, then I have to work on it till I get it right. Because even after I'm done with the book, which is what happens, to a lot of writers, oh, my character did this because there's so much of a part of me. And I'm sure a lot of your characters are too. We can't help that.
Oh,
These are
absolutely.
like my friends, my family, these are, but they're not like they're not taken from people. They're just taken from my mind, but they become important to me. But if your characters aren't important to you, they're not going to be important to anybody else.
Exactly. And my characters do speak to me. I have dreams where they
Yeah,
come and
yeah,
they talk to me. And sometimes I can hear them inside my
yeah,
head, and sometimes they're very
yeah,
insistent. And,
yeah,
it's just the way it
yeah.
is. And if that makes me crazy, then okay, I'm crazy.
No, a lot of
I'm all
writers,
right with
we
that.
are this way. We are. That's one
Yeah.
of the reasons we're trying to tell people that these are the things that we are and we face, and we know other people that tell us stories that have questions because they face the same ones.
Oh yeah, it's like I had a writer who her character suddenly started talking to her, and she said to me, "Is this what you mean?" And I went, "Yeah, that's it." And she goes, "This sucks. They're driving me
Yeah,
nuts." And I
yeah.
said, "Yeah, the only way to shut them up is to write them,
Right,
because I can tell you
right,
that
right.
fact."
And sometimes they're just like people. They can because they
Hmm.
make
They
mistakes,
are
and
people.
then they make mistakes. And so I think even if you're writing a children's book or whatever book you're writing, you have to really get to know them. And the only way you're going to get to know them is if you write them. If you just keep saying I'm going to write, it's not happening. Just write them because once you start writing them, they become real and you will get to know them and they will know you and you can have a good story. This is it, all
And
about
you
the
will be,
story.
yeah. And I think I think that's the big takeaway, especially from today's podcast,
Yes,
is it's all about the story.
yes, that's what it
It's
is.
all about the story. If you don't have a good story, you're not going to have a good
Right.
book.
Which,
If you don't have a good
that's right.
story, you're not going to stick with it long enough to
Right.
fix
And
it.
you know,
If you don't have a good story, nobody's going to read
right.
it.
And if you, like you saying about, like I say about the characters, they give you the story. It's hard
Oh yeah,
for other people to understand that, but they do. They go, "Oh, I don't like what you just did to me. Switch this. This isn't good." So I think those are the things that writers will feel if you let yourself. That's what this broadcast is
yeah.
about today. It's let yourself feel and get into their heads and
Be
be
open.
right, be open and be open for change because you can't say that, oh, they're not going to do this because, oh, yes, they might want to do this. So,
I had a character. I was writing a book, and I was having the worst time getting the book started, and I just couldn't seem to get it. And I
yeah.
was really and what I realized was the main character didn't like the name I'd given
Right.
him.
Right.
So I tried a different name, and he was
Yeah.
that's a little better, but not much. Once I hit on his
Yeah.
name, wrote like gangbusters. And it was
Okay.
like,
That's
okay, so
true. That's
when people say, oh, name isn't
it is.
important. Oh,
Oh,
yes,
it's
it is.
everything. My editor, I've known him for, I don't know, 30 years or whatever. Anyway, so I had this problem when I did this book, the latest book, Dinner at the Deli. There was a character, Molly, and then I, other character's name was Dolly. I knew it wasn't right. And I didn't have that the first, I didn't, so I changed it and I couldn't write it. So then he told me, which is a good thing. He said, just write it as the character, and then you can change when we're done. You can put the name because I didn't want Molly Dolly. I was not. I just
Yeah,
didn't like that. He goes, when I'm editing it now, we'll just take the name and make it Charlotte because I wanted to change it to Charlotte. So he goes, just do it. We'll do it that way. So when you're writing it, you're still talking for Dolly, but it's Charlotte. at the
Yeah.
end, because I didn't, sometimes you don't think of it. You just think of a name, but it doesn't fit right. Because, Molly, Dolly, it just to me went too much of this. And I thought that was a pretty good way to do it. Just write it as Dolly and change it later at the end, change all the, just you can put it in the name, Charlotte, and it works.
You don't even have to have the name. I started my working life as a legal secretary paralegal, and I'm old enough that when I started, our idea of great technology was a corrected selector, which I doubt many people even know about or remember. But I was on the first wave of word processors and computers and how to use them. And I was working for a law firm, and we were dealing with a Japanese company, and the name of the company was like 17 letters
Yeah.
long, and I couldn't have pronounced it if my life had depended on it, and I sure as hell couldn't spell it. So what I did was, instead of writing the blah 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 company, I just went the XXX, and I put three
Oh, good
X's
idea. Yeah.
and then kept
Yeah.
writing. And at the end of the document, I went and did a search and replace. Search for triple X, and everywhere you see
Right.
it, put
Yeah. See,
this.
that's a good idea too,
You
because
know,
it is hard, because sometimes that can, I didn't want that to bog me down. So, that was what happened, because it does bog you down sometimes if you have an issue with
oh
something
yeah.
you've done. All right. Now, so when an author decides to write,
Hmm.
I know I was an agent for years. It's not everybody that can get published. Okay. You and I have talked about this before.
Hmm.
So, anybody out there listening, you can do an independent book and be successful. You don't have to go to a
Absolutely.
publisher. So, here's the thing, don't feel bad because, on the other hand, you need help. And so, what we have said, you and I both said, there's a lot of steps you do take, but if don't bog yourself down with you're not going to get published or you are going to get published 1, 2, 3, because that is definitely not happening. So it's
No.
very hard now. It's a lot of money for a publisher to decide on a new author because they have to put a lot of money in. And today's world, it isn't happening. It's just not.
Yeah.
But there are things.
I
So
agree.
when you hear I call it, I don't call it self-publishing because of years ago, and I've mentioned this, it sounds, I just don't like the name, but they call it self-publishing. But to me, it's still independently publishing. You're doing this yourself. Like you said before, you
Right.
have somebody that you have a whole team that helps you.
Yeah. I always say I don't write in a vacuum. I have a cover designer, and I one of the things I really think people need to do from the beginning is brand
Yeah.
themselves. Come up with an author logo
Yeah.
and a look you want, and all of your covers need to match that branding. Now, it doesn't mean all the covers are the
Uh,
same or they all look the same, but it does mean that somebody can tell that's a Delta James cover. I did you and I talked about this last week. I did a piece for my newsletter, and I talked about covers and kind of what goes into all of that. And part of what it is they're not for you. A cover has one job and one job only, and that's
uh,
to direct people to your book and get them to buy
right.
it. And I had hundreds, literally, it came out on last Friday. I've had hundreds of people writing me, emailing
Yeah.
me, private messaging me on Facebook. On the emails, and I thought I would hear. I have a lot of authors on my newsletter list. I thought I'd hear mostly from authors, either telling me I had my head up my
Yeah.
ass and I was a bitch, or oh, I never thought of that. And actually, nobody has said anything bad to me, but the majority, and I mean like 75% of the people who've written to me are
Yeah.
readers
Right.
and telling me, yes, you're right, or yes, this is what I think, and blah 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 blah. And I've had some really interesting discussions with people on it, and I think that kind of stuff is fascinating, and I just love
Yeah.
it. But you have to know. So I have Bajar who did my logo and does all of my covers. And the thing I hear from authors and from readers is they can tell it's a Delta James book before they ever get
Yeah.
to my name,
Yeah, I think
just
because
by the
right, she's
look.
very talented, and I know that
It's
she
just very
right,
branded.
and she did I think 4 or 5 of my covers. Okay, so the interesting part is in Uh, it was my it's all about love. When I put it the whole legacy together, there's a chocolate on it, a box. So it's like somebody said to me, they go, "Oh, you know what? I love this cover because I would like to take a piece of that chocolate and eat it." I mean, so I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh, and Dar did the cover. So I think that if I don't have always what I want from the cover of what I think I need, but I do know one thing when I write for my with dogs in it, I want the dog on the cover. And most people at the beginning, when I started writing a few people with dog, books, they said, "Do not put that dog on the cover." I go, "I have to." She said, I need her on. And
She's a character in the
right, I
book.
need her on. So, and that's what I've done. So that's the other thing. You have to have, if you really want something, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Or if the person like Dara or whoever is
Mhm.
designing your cover says, this really isn't a good cover. And they don't even want to, they don't want to do it. They want, when they're, done, they have a sense of pride. If they don't like the cover, they feel
Yeah,
bad, I think,
absolutely.
because that's
I,
them.
I think I think they are as proud of what they do and should
Yeah,
be as we are about
right.
what we do. The one my point about really finding a cover designer you can work with, and somebody out there is going, well, I can design my own covers.
Maybe.
Maybe. I can tell you one or two authors that could actually do
Yeah,
that, and they're rare. Most of the time,
right.
nope. You can tell it's not a professionally done cover, and they don't know what they're doing, and it will hurt you.
But
It will cripple
do
you.
you know what's interesting?
But
Don't look at the big time authors. They need new covers. Their covers are not good.
yeah, but here's my thing. I'll tell you this. This is what I talked about in this article. If it's selling the book, you don't change it. I have a
Yeah.
cover, you and I have talked about this, that I loathe. I absolutely can't stand the cover, but it sells the
Yeah.
book. So I suck it up and
Yeah.
keep it.
Yeah.
The minute it stops selling the book,
But
trust
they
me,
could
I
use
will
such,
change covers.
they
But
could have
until it
such
does,
a good cover. I'm thinking, oh my God, why not?
I just don't like the model. I just don't like the look. I just don't. But but everybody else seems to like it, so it's like fine.
I know.
And that's kind of how I started my article about covers. I said your cover isn't for you,
I know.
and it's not. It's for your readers.
Yep, that's
It's for
true.
direct. And the readers that wrote in were like, "Thank you for recognizing what's important to it. Thank you for recognizing we have a part of your
Yep.
success. Thank you for because a lot of authors treat readers with disdain. And
Well, we need
it
readers.
really,
We need readers, of course.
well, you know my thing about the word fans versus the word
Yeah.
reader, and I don't use the word fan, I don't use it for a
Yeah.
reason. But for me, it's a symbiotic relationship between the writer and the
Yeah.
reader. If you don't buy my books, I can't make a living. But if I don't write, you can't have anything to read.
Yeah.
It's symbiotic. It's we depend on each other, and we ought to treat each other nicely. And I will tell you, there are some readers that treat authors badly too. I hear that, but for the most part, I love my readers, and when somebody writes to
Oh,
me, I write
I
them back.
love it.
I can't tell you how much time I've spent answering
Yeah.
emails, but it's important to me. Somebody took enough time out of their
Right.
day to write me.
I Yeah.
Something I said touched them in a way that made them want to reach out. I am not going to ignore
Right.
that. I am not going to give that to somebody else to do for
No.
me.
That
If
well,
you, I will tell you, if you send me
yeah.
an email or
Oh,
you
yeah.
direct
Yeah.
message me on
Yeah.
Facebook, I'm the one who
Yeah.
answers you, not anybody
Yeah,
else.
that's the one
Um,
thing that's important, right? Like we can all have pictures out there, and I found one company that I'm trying them because I like to try different things so I can tell people, and it's an AI
yeah,
company, so they are putting things out, but I cannot help myself but to put my own stuff out there too. I can't, I think I need more than I do, but I like to be in charge. Okay, so they put some things on. I said, you know what? This is my show. I've done this for 17 years, and people know this. I do not like pictures. However, they put somebody else's picture. I go, "What are you doing?" I mean, don't put a picture, put a microphone or something, but don't not put somebody else on my cut.
don't
Yes,
misrepresent me.
this isn't me, and so they did a picture. I'm thinking like, well, they fixed up my hair part, one part that was okay. I said, but my hands, they weren't my hands. And I'm going like, oh my God, so those are all things that I notice, but then I'm going like, okay, just let it go because they're getting a lot of people viewing my things, but I have to let that go. So I am. But when someone emails me or somebody puts a comment down, it's me. I don't want anybody talking for me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
They know you,
I
they know you, they know me, and that isn't my words. I don't like that.
Yeah, what you see is what you get with
Right?
me,
Yeah.
and you can
That's
walk up to me in a restaurant or any place else, and I'll talk to
me
you.
too.
My thing is, I understand where some people come off that they're in control of everything, and maybe because spent so much of my working life as a COO, where I was in control of
Yeah.
everything, that as a writer, I control my book.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yep.
control. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Dar does the
Yep.
covers,
Yeah.
Renee does the
Yeah.
marketing. I don't have nothing to do with it. I don't have any, I mean, I just literally, when people, new authors will always want to talk to me, and they want to talk to me about marketing because it's really the thing they don't understand. And the worst part is they don't understand even what all goes into it.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not the person to talk
Right.
to. I can't
Right.
speak marketing. We don't market. I hired Renee. That's her job. And somebody at this signing this week, and there was a lot of time for authors to talk,
Yeah.
came by my table and she said, "Well, how did you work with your PA?" And I said, Renee said to me, "How do you want to work
Yeah.
together?" And I said, "I write them, you sell
Right.
them."
Yeah.
And she looked at
Yeah.
me, she laughed, and I
No,
said, "I'm
that's it. No, it
serious."
is true. And
She went, "Okay." And that's the way we've always worked.
and
I know maybe a third of what she does for me, maybe a third.
but
The
but
rest, I don't need to
no.
know. She's made me
Right.
successful. I don't need to know. That's her
Right.
job.
Now
So,
like okay, I'm gonna ask you a question because I'm gonna answer it also.
okay.
Like, okay, so when you are writing and your editor, do you my editor has permission to do he's done all my books. I go, just do what you need to do to make it read well. That's what I care about.
Uh-huh.
I don't care what I told he knows this. I don't
Uh-huh.
care if he cuts, I don't care what he does, because at the end result, people read the book and like the book. That's what I care about.
Exactly.
So, but people have asked me, they go, they ask questions like that. And I need to change this word or that word? I go, I'll just tell you something. When he's done, I do not change anything. I don't, because I trust that he
I
will fix my book, because I am not an editor and grammar is not my best thing,
Me either.
but
I,
I can
I,
write a
I
story, but I can't do that.
my editor knows that she can change a word
Yeah.
here. If I use the wrong word, put a comma there. I don't care about any
Yeah.
of that stuff. But if she's not sure, she'll leave me a comment in
Right.
the comment
Yes.
box.
Right.
And I don't, I used to work with a gal that always left everything redlined.
Yeah.
And I used to know these three other
Oh,
authors, and we were
I
talking
can't do
about
that. I can't do
editors,
that. It drives me, I can't.
and they were like, "Oh my God, it takes so
I
long
can't.
to edit." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "It doesn't take long to edit. It's maybe a day." "Oh God, no, it's days and days
Yeah.
and days." And we're talking, somebody
Yeah.
went, "Wait a minute, are you telling me you guys go to each change
Oh
they
my
made
God.
and
They do.
accept that one change and then go to the next
Uh,
change?" "Well, yes." I said, "What a freaking waste of
yeah. Yeah.
time."
I do exactly
I'm
that. I don't
sorry.
do that
I
either.
used
I said,
when I would get those, I would just accept all changes and then I go through the
yeah.
comments. I'm not, like you say, I'm not the grammar police.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not, I know good grammar and I use good grammar, but do I get it wrong? And grammar changes. First there
Right.
were serial commas, then there
Right.
weren't, then
Oh
there
my
are. I
God.
mean,
It's
I don't want to keep up
unbelievable.
with all that
Yeah.
crap.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't want to keep up
I
with
don't
all that
either.
crap. That's somebody else's job.
Yes. I
So
agree.
that's what I depend on them to
Me
do.
too.
And I depend on them to do. I always say to people, find people who are good at the job
Right.
you want them to
Exactly.
do.
Right.
Then get the hell out of their
Yeah,
way and let
because
them
right,
do
and
it.
because and my publisher Fideli, who does put everything together, she knows when she gets my book from Jeff, my editor, she's like home free. She can format it
Yep,
because she knows it's not screwed up. Okay. And that is
exactly.
what is important. And I know people think every word that they say, if something is blue or yellow or whatever, or this word or that, I'm not like that. My story matters. So the story matters and the
Uh-huh.
dialogue matters. But if you take,
Story comes
right,
first.
and if you take out a couple paragraphs, bye bye. I don't care.
Yeah,
I
I
do
mean,
not care.
I'm the same
Yeah.
way. I had a good friend who she would and I mean this sincerely. I'm not dramatizing. she would agonize over a comma for
Oh,
hours,
yeah.
days, weeks. And it's like, it's a freaking comma.
Right.
Use it or
Right.
don't. Who cares? It's not important. I'm sorry. There are things I focus on. I focus on character development,
Yes.
on deep point of view, on making the experience immersive for the
Yep.
reader. That's what I do.
Yep.
Whether or not there's a comma in front of and in a series of words, I don't
Yeah, I don't
care.
either. I really don't.
You know,
No, it's not
but
what I care
it's
about, because you know what? You know, a reader, okay, this is one thing people that are writing should realize. A reader, they do not read every sentence 50 times. They read the paragraph.
no,
We read
yeah,
everything, but they do not. They read the story. They don't, if they do check for commas, then tell them this is not this is not a reader. This is like a grammatical person or something. I don't know.
yeah,
But a reader, and especially if it's an audiobook, they don't care. They could not care less if
yeah.
there's a comma. They just want the story. So that's that. I'm glad
That's
we
right.
were like ending on that, because that's important. The
They
important
want the
part,
experience.
yes. And when you get an editor, if you constantly tell them you want to change this and that, you're not going to be working with that editor for long.
No, no.
that's
And after
that's
a
a
while,
signal.
they
Yeah.
realize that you don't value what they do.
Yes. And I
And I
right.
think that can be said about anybody you work with in any industry. If you don't value what somebody is doing
Yeah.
for you or trying to help
Yeah.
you with, if you don't value
Yeah.
them, they're not going to work with them very long, or they're gonna go ahead and take your money, but they're not going to give a
Right.
damn.
And that's not to say, like, sometimes, like, he will call me and go, if he didn't understand something, we talk about the story a little, then he gets it. You know what I mean? And then he can go do what he
Yeah,
needs to do.
yeah.
But because I don't write a story that's like perfect, believe me. I'm sure there's a lot of red, but to me, seeing all those red marks, I can't take it. I have to admit. And
Oh,
I am not
yeah.
some little Lily who is worried about everything, but I can't, if I look at that on a screen, first of all, I would probably,
Oh no, mine was always accept all and then save it and I move
yeah,
on.
because I would
I don't.
change it
I
then. I
just
would probably start changing my story every 5 minutes if it was,
Well, one of
ugh,
the things I do that's a little bit different than a lot of people, after it's gone to the editor, after it's
yeah.
gone to the proofreader, after it's gone through the beta readers, then I sit down and do a read through using Word's read aloud
Oh, I
feature,
love that
and
now. Oh my God. You know
you'd
what?
be amazed at the stuff you catch that way.
Isn't that great?
But my feeling was always, if I didn't like something the editor did, I could change it then.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what?
There was no
Is
reason to
that
waste
on
time on
Copilot?
that.
Like now, Copilot is really good because, and that
Mhm.
word, and I didn't even know I had it. It read me. See, years ago when they would read it. It was so horrible. I didn't ever want to listen to anything anybody wrote. But now
Yeah.
they were reading it really good, and I'm thinking this was a story that I was going to dump. And then I went, "Geez, this sounds pretty good," And I'm thinking, because they're good on that now, because they actually have expression when they're talking. So
Yeah,
that's a big help
it's
now.
like I said, I open up the manuscript, I have it in I write in Word. I
Yeah,
have it
I
in
do too.
Word, I hit read aloud and I read as it reads. And the the changes that you find
Yeah,
are just,
I know.
and it's like, I read it, Chris Alpha read
Yep,
it went to the
yep.
editor, it went to the proofreader, it went to the beta readers, and we all missed it.
It happens. It
And the
happens.
fun thing about beta readers is we get their comments in, and they'll have some of the same comments about a word or something. But I'm telling you, generally they're all different.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody finds different
Right,
things. And
exactly. And
one
that's
of
a good thing. But the other thing is, if you make a mistake, don't be, nowadays it's very different.
don't
So
kill
just
yourself.
so we can say one thing, nowadays the digital books, it doesn't take a lot for somebody to go in and change or take out even a sentence. It's not like
Yeah,
it was years ago when it went to print and that's the end of it.
yeah,
It's really, really good because you can change it. That's it. You can if it's really something bad, but most of the
yeah.
time
You
it's
can.
not. But try to find an editor. That's the thing. Try to find an editor, or if you have questions, that's one of the things. Like I said at the beginning, ask Delta, ask me. We'll bring it out here and talk about it because I think that people don't want to ask questions themselves.
My feeling is always, if you're wondering it, I guarantee you, so's
Right.
everybody. So are other
We're
people.
all alike a
You're,
lot. There's a lot of
so
similarities in a writer. Yes.
exactly. And I think it's not just find an editor you can work with, it's find people you can work
Yeah.
with who you respect their talent, you think they're really good at what they do, and let them do their job. Don't be, I see so many authors get frustrated. Well, that editor won't work with me, or that PA fired me because you won't let them do their
Right.
job.
Right.
I always say, how would you feel if they were telling you how to write your
Right.
book?
And that's what
If they were
I'm
telling you how to
doing
tell the
now. I'm
story?
doing this with this.
That's not their job.
Yes.
That's your
I'm
job.
trying
So
to
let
do
them
it.
do their
I'm
job.
trying to do it now with this company. We'll see. I don't know about AI. Nobody is exactly that sure of how this is going to work. But I will add one thing. A lot of editors are not happy with this if you come to them with your story and go, this is what AI did, because a lot of people that have been doing this a long time are kind of leery about what this is. It's a new territory for all of us. But
Mhm.
when you want to tell a story, tell a story. Don't use AI to tell your story. Use your brain. That's what it comes.
Use your brain, but
It helps. You can do certain things.
I'm a big believer. I mean, Copilot
Oh,
is AI.
but it's yeah,
AI is out.
yeah.
You're not going to put the genie back in the
Right.
bottle. I
Oh,
guarantee you
right.
that. The way that makes it
Exactly.
work for you. I cannot draw. I cannot draw to save my life. I
No, I
cannot
can't
draw.
either. Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
can go to some of the like Canva and different programs and ask it to describe a room.
Yeah.
The
Yeah. Well,
operations
that's
center for
right.
Cerberus.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can
Right.
ask it, I can describe that and it can create a picture. And that's really
Yeah.
helpful. It's really kind of fun to have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Right.
can't draw, and
No,
I
I
can't,
cannot draw.
I can't even like pull different things from different places and place them on the. And I'm in awe of people who can. I
Yeah.
truly am.
Yeah, I
I'm in
can't either.
awe of
Right. But
that
you're right.
talent.
So know your strength. Know your
Yeah,
strength. Know
and
your
play to your strength.
weaknesses because we all have issues. There's no doubt about it. But try to come to some compromise so you can actually finish a story. And then take criticism because we're not perfect, none of us. And the editors aren't either. So on occasion, if they make a
Yeah,
mistake, you can tell them that. We're not saying don't say this to your editor, but have enough trust and have enough trust in yourself that the story you're telling is good.
that's the best piece of advice on this whole show,
Yes.
right there.
Okay. Here we go.
No, it is.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
best piece of advice. Have enough
Right.
faith in your story. Have
That's right.
faith in yourself and your story.
Yes.
Um, you may have
And
to tweak it here and there to make it palatable to sell, but have faith.
yeah, I
Keep
think
with
that's
it.
really yes, and keep and right and you and I mean we agree on a lot of things because we have been doing this a while, but we do have are in agreement with this, and that's one of the things we want to help people because we
Exactly.
know, and sometimes people are afraid to ask a question. They don't want to act like they don't know it. But you know what? We do not know everything, but I do learn every day. And since I've been doing
Me
shows, I
too.
learned so much from everybody else. So there's always things we can learn to make our
Well,
writing better.
I think the day you stop learning is the day you start dying.
Yeah, you
And
have
I
to
mean
learn.
that
Yeah,
sincerely.
yeah. No, I agree. You have to learn from others. Look at, yeah, you might not get the best advice from someone. And so just take it that way and go, you know what? I don't really like what they said. So then move on. You don't have to do
Well,
what they said.
and not everything works for everybody. I mean, it
No,
just
that's
isn't.
true.
And sometimes you do things and people say, oh, so and so's going to get angry at you. And I'm sort of like, what do you think she's going to put a gun to my head to stop me? I mean,
Yeah.
because unless she is, I'm pretty much going to do what I want because I'm kind of
Yeah,
stubborn that way.
right. And
Well,
well, I think a lot of authors I have that somewhat in them because we know what we're thinking, but sometimes we do need to be told like, hey, not a good thing. So
and
we
that
listen.
goes back to the comment about know your tribe. You need a
Yeah,
tribe of people that can say to you, that's a bad idea. This is not
yeah,
a good idea.
yeah. And
So
okay, before we end the show, if you have a good time that you say, what time do people really like to listen to shows live? I have changed my time over and over in the last 17 years, changed days, changed times. But I'm just wondering, I have not asked that question, but if you have a time that you think is a good time slot, let me know. You don't have to be on the show, but let me know what time is convenient for you to listen to shows. I've never really asked that because I'm not sure what that is. That's why they're all on demand. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah. So we'll hope that people, and just, you don't even just respond like, 10 o'clock, 12, don't say 6 in the morning, not happening. Not when I go to bed at 3. Oh my God. I got to work on that. Anyway, Delta, thank you so much. This has been
Thanks
great.
for having me.
And thank you to everybody that listens. And this is a new year, so let's all get out there and write. Right? Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.